mean, it's almost like potato chips. Stop at 10 potato chips. Have you ever tried to stop at 10 potato chips? There is no way.
Have you got a speech?
No.
Okay. I've got a 1 minute PSA.
But I know Alan was going to be gone.
I was starting
Yes.
on one.
Alan and Mark and Rochelle will not be here. That I know of. You ready with your table topics?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Table topic marathon.
Yeah, why not? And let me have my 1 minute thing for
Here he is.
practice.
Master ceremony.
There he is. Hey.
How's everyone?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine. Have you started the meeting
Nope,
already?
I'm just thinking about it. I'm not waiting for you.
Let him catch his breath.
Oh, no, I'm fine. Thanks for thinking that way, though.
All right. Good afternoon. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Should we do the pledge? Should we start with the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, liberty and justice for all.
We'll do the mission. The mission
of
of
the
the
Toastmasters
Toastmasters
Club
Club is to
provide
provide
a
a mutually supportive and nurturing environment in which every individual member has the opportunity to develop oral communication and leadership skills, confidence, and personal growth. All right, be seated. Jim, do you have any business to let us know about?
I think I'll bring out anything like that in table topics. I'm hoping I'll get something. I do not. Other than, it's my understanding, the city will be the area governor.
And is that
I will be leaving here on May 2nd to go to Bismarck for the conference there. Our district governor, Rochelle Williams, had a resurgence for cancer, and she will not be available to complete her term of service. Ballots were circulated to Kathy Anderson, who was the in that second position to move ahead and assume these responsibilities. She even went so far as nominating herself and got a unanimous voice of vote of approval from. What I'll do is I'll put together a basket, and you know, if anybody has something I'd like to contribute to do for a fundraiser, a book or a anything, you know, that would be more than welcome. And I will last meeting of the month and put it in a basket. And
okay? So that'll be next Thursday.
that'll be
Your last meeting.
Oh, May and the first Thursday of June, I won't be here. I'll be in Michigan.
All right. Well, then I
And
think we might.
maybe even the third Thursday, I won't be around,
Okay.
but I'll be over in those.
Okay, but that first Thursday in May, you will be gone.
It's last Thursday.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I'll be here the second Thursday or not.
Sounds good. Will you have fun in Michigan?
I will. Going back for a class reunion.
Oh my goodness! And how
That's
many
where I
years?
grew up and lived over there.
And how many years is your reunion?
It's a 60th class reunion.
wow.
Yeah. Well, have fun, enjoy it.
Oh, I will.
All right, Pete, our VP Education and our Toastmaster. We're so glad that you're here. And just to let you know, we only have one minute PSA speech today from Jim, but Virginia did bring table topics, so we thought we could always have a table topic marathon.
We good?
But you're in charge, so
Thank you
will
very
let
much.
decide.
Thank you. So I should ask before we get started, Are we okay being in here? We're usually supposed to be in the boardroom, but there's other people in there, so I don't know if we swap, so.
I was here by invitation of the key lady with the key.
That's right.
All right, good.
It's amazing what power that yields.
Don't see that as your speech topic, but I understand it's a 1-minute PSA.
That is correct.
And I'll run time you unless Donna can. And so then I've got 2 speeches if no one else has speeches. So I need to find a competent communicator manual so we get going.
What number is it?
That's what I need to figure out. Thank you very much.
I might have a page.
Here we go. I'm good. Yeah, I'll buy that from Alan. So Jim had volunteered to evaluate one of my speeches, but I need another evaluator as well. So who wants to do that? Would Nancy do that, or is she already busy with jobs?
I can do.
Okay, good. I'll sit next to you and we'll be in very good shape indeed by the time, and I'll do that one last. And then we'll have lots of time for table topics. So I think we're gonna have a good meeting, although several are absent, and let me know of such. So won't you be pleased when you hear my speech as to how things are unfolding. But now let me welcome Jim with a PSA that must have something to do with Toastmasters, because he said he was going to educate us. Jim?
Thank you, Pete. Let me do some preface before you start timing me. In the past several years, the National Day of Prayer has been held here in Glendive, Montana. It's actually the 63rd consecutive year that this has been held in the United States. And in Glendive, Montana, it's been going on for several years. We've had different groups assume the responsibility to do that. As serving as secretary of the Ministerial Association, I volunteered not quite the extravaganza that it has been in previous years, where hundreds of sack lunches were passed out, there were counseling sessions arranged and provided. It went well beyond the focus of the National Day of Prayer. So having said that, would you start my time? The National Day of Prayer will be observed in Glendive, Montana on May 1st, that's a Thursday, at the gazebo on Merrill Avenue in downtown Glendive. This will be an outdoor event. Hopefully the weather will be good, and so please bring a lawn chair if you want to be seated. The theme this year is One Voice United in Prayer. From the book of Romans, from the NIV translation, it says, so that with one heart and mouth you may glorify the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. This emphasizes the need for individuals as part of a body of believers, or just individuals, to place their faith in the character of our Creator. For about an hour, various ministers and church leaders, along with the Dawson County High School Chorale Group, will be participating. Please join us at the gazebo on Merrill Avenue or on KGLE Radio for the National Day of Prayer in Glendive, Montana. How many seconds?
107.
107, okay. And I stumbled a couple times in there, so that's very useful feedback for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
So that'll be Thursday at noon, won't it?
That'll be why I won't be at
The first
the
Thursday.
meeting.
One of us will be here.
Listen on the radio.
Well, I've been struggling with a topic, and I thought, today might be the day to go ahead and do that. There's just lots of things that making presentations and the club successful and all of those things, just all sorts helpful information. So my topic, well, there's a handout for it. I'll send those this way. Send those this way. Give you maybe an extra one. Send to Mark who doesn't get email. Meeting etiquette. In today's world, we struggle. You know, Emily Post is retired. Ask Abby isn't read as often as it used to be. What is our etiquette for these meetings? When I suggested class, I got some funny looks. And the more I thought about it and looked at pictures of past gatherings of Toastmasters, Donna's is perfect for those meetings of yesterday. So it was business. Everyone was wearing a jacket and a tie or a business suit like Donna. And we, way back when I first joined, a club of individuals that wasn't sponsored by any business, but of people who were looking to go ahead and help themselves on the job, or just whatever it might be, customer relations, things like that. And so when I did the research for this project, I looked at both models, and that's what's on your handout. I looked at both models. You know, what's our etiquette if we're kind of like a business meeting? And then what's our etiquette if we're, so whichever model you embrace, I think you'll see that the principles, maybe the dress code, are similar. So I noticed as I go to the colleges that college students tend to dress a lot more casual than business folk. That's the only, I kind of like the way this research brought out this result. One of the teachers of meeting etiquette said, well, my father's mantra applies. Early is on time is late, and being late is unacceptable. Yeah, and so I was unacceptable. Today, you know, I set the example of being unacceptable, and not entirely on purpose either. And you guys were gracious. So one thing then is to be on time, and another is to be prepared, as we'll see in a moment. But look first at what should you do if you arrive late, and if you need to leave early. Again, I'm going to choose Donna as an example of a month or so ago. She needed to leave early, and she did it perfectly. She let the person who was going to be in charge of the meeting know that she was going to be leaving early, and she slipped out. And that's exactly right. Same thing if you, Stacy, for instance, gave us a great example of when she had to step out. Someone summoned her from the door, and then she slipped in and she sat on a chair that was placed right here for late arrival people. Yeah. So to come in silently, like what happened to me last week. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm late. We got locked out. Sorry. You know, right in the middle of a class. I mean, I'm reteaching. Yeah. So, as compared, what Stacy did. So, there's etiquette about leaving early. Cell phones, Alan's favorite, right? How many knows mine chirped? Someone's chirped, maybe it wasn't mine. But what does it say? It said, turn them off. If someone's vibrates, the people on either side are going to check also. Even vibrating is disruptive. Now, what if you have an important call? Well, that's in there too. Turn it on silent and hold that little sucker in your hand, sit in the back, and when it lights up, step out. If you've got something important that you need to do. And then the dress code, as I mentioned, I did include that in the handout. These days are acceptable for guys, but guys need to wear stuff with a collar, etc. And no funny shoes. And I kind of like the summary there. You want to be noticed for your intelligence and skills, not your clothing. So anyway, if you needed to know that. So the class, same thing, on time. You know, and then it says in these published guidelines, it says when you enter after class has already started, you are being rude, as well as disruptive and inconsiderate. Now, I know you don't want to be thought, which of course is a great thing. Okay, good manners, good judgment, and then do not talk or interrupt during speeches or when other members have been called to express their opinions. Pay attention when leaders and members have the floor, and if you miss something, approach your mentor or officer during breaks to ask questions. And then there's some things on the system, but some, you know, to complete your stuff on time, and the more you put in, the more you'll get out, etc. So then, still in the classroom model about how to be respectful, be on time, stay the entire time, don't pack up early, that's disruptive. The same thing about leaving early, coming late is in the business model. And also in these, turn off your cell phone. And then again, the guidance about set it on silent if you've got a pending emergency. And then also, I like this one, and that is raise your hand silently if you have a question. So if you plan to ask a question or make a comment, raise your hand and wait for the Toastmaster to address you rather than interrupting audibly. And stay on task. And then also etiquette in regard to recording devices. When Jim and I went to Bozeman, for instance, there was a question about whether he should record the meeting because Toastmasters has a policy about that. So anyway, a handout and information for your consideration as we think about meeting etiquette and as I research that from my Speaking to Inform manual. So are there any questions about those guidelines or comments that you'd like to make before we move on?
Comment.
Yes.
Proper planning.
Now, Jimmy, I'm sorry.
Prior
You did not raise your hand.
Ah!
So Donna, you're next. If Jim doesn't raise his hand, I won't call on him.
I would just like to say that one thing that you didn't mention that is in your printout that I think is very important. It is generally true there is a direct relationship between the amount of effort you put in to speeches and leadership jobs and the benefit you gain. I think that's very true.
Okay, very good. Anyone else have Jim's got his hand up. All right.
Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. That to me has been very helpful.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you all. Any other comments, questions before we wrap up? Okay. So our next speaker is well known to us and is going to be speaking about finding the fun in fundamentals, because this is a speak-a-thon and you may bring as many speeches as you ever like. This is an important topic also. You know, on the one hand, we might think of the first speech as kind of some of the limits on our behavior, 5 to 7. Okay, so we might think of, so this is number 7 from the Competent Communicator Manual. So we might have thought of the first speech as being kind of the limits, and now this speech is being the flag, those limits. So this one is called Finding the Fun in the Fundamentals. And by calling your attention to something that a surprising number of people in Glendive find interesting, even important. And that is that the Boston Red Sox won the World Series last year. World Series last year, yeah. And we have some fine moving back to Boston from Glendive. Stacy just visited Boston for St. Patrick's Day. Why did the Red Sox win the World Series? Are they arguably last year the best team in creation? Or was there something more? Was there something different? Of bearded brothers. If you follow baseball at all, you know that towards the end of the season, everybody on the team had a beard. And some looked good and some didn't look so good. But decided way back in spring training, they were going to have some fun. Now, I'm kind of hooked in Red Sox because summers I used to visit my grandfather, and one thing he'd do every summer was take Sox versus the Kansas City, they were in Kansas way back then, the Kansas City Athletics. And we'd go and eat hot and watch baseball along the first baseline like every summer on vacation. That was his big deal. And so over the greats, I've seen Ted Williams play, I've seen Carl Yastrzemski play, all of the great people through all of the years. I followed them now from afar instead of from the seats along the first. Last year, a guy who always has a beard by the name of Dustin Pedroia got together team members and suggested they have fun with the fundamentals. Now you maybe remember that Dustin is the matter of fact, when he was in college, he was playing tennis as well as baseball. And one of the things he learned, tennis makes baseball fun for him. And that is, at the sound of the other guy hitting the tennis ball, he jumped so that he could go over his head. I mean, he was that short. And so now, when he's playing second base, you will notice when the ball is hit by the bat, he jumps and he catches a lot of them in the air that way. But to have fun with every little play, with every fundamental, they had 2 rules: have fun and do not lose 3 games in a row. And that's how they won the World Series. Let's try not to lose 3 in a row ever. Dustin Pedroia is so short and was so unlikely to be put on a major league that he even wrote a book called Born to Play. Back then, when he was playing tennis and college baseball, he was 5'2" and a whopping 140 pounds. As he had his last growth spurt, he got all the way up to 5'7" and now weighs 170 pounds. He's still the smallest guy on the team. And yet, so often, player again, and indeed helped them win not only the World Series before, but the most recent one as well. While he says, my job is to win ball games, taking fun from the fundamentals. Fellow Toastmasters. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and I asked it. So we're over to Virginia while I think of a joke.
Well, that's probably laughing at me.
Well, I'll go for you then.
Table topics are 1 to 2, 2 to 3.
1 to 2.
1 to 2. Valuations are 2 to 3.
You can choose one of them.
I like to say. Thank you, Tabletop Virginia. Can you describe how to discipline in a positive way? This should have been Pete's.
That's right.
And Darren and I kind of have different ways. I can't say that mine is probably the best. I'm usually a nagger and just, get after them. And Darren tends to explain more, which I like that, rather than, Devin, you gotta clean your room. I told you how many times you gotta clean your room. And then Darren will take the time to, Devin, to clean your room. It's, you have to have more than just a path to get out of your room. If something were to happen and you have to get out in the night, then you want to make sure off your floor. So I would say that would be a positive way to discipline, is to explain things rather than nagging. And you can have fun and still get your point across, I think. So, thank you, Virginia.
I just stopped. 1 minute and about 6 seconds on this. See which one that is. Hope you don't take the one on
Madam Table Topics presenter, what is your season or seasons? This has changed over time. At one time, spring, summer, fall was uniquely my favorite season because the temperatures were. And then I went and lived in South America where it was summer virtually every day of the year. And I have eliminated from favorite because cold and really hot are just the extremes that I choose not to, unless I have to. Now, let's narrow this down further. Spring and fall. Because I really like precipitation and rain as part of my farm background. It's just absolutely a wonderful thing. So, I'm going to
come down to spring is in
Okay. Might as well have one too.
you.
Make it look fun.
Is there enough?
There's enough.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Table Topic Master, fellow Toastmasters, what is your favorite pet and why? I could answer that in one word. Rufus was kind of a junkyard dog. And after I'd had him about 3 years, someone from Tennessee offered me $1,000 for him. It turns out that this junkyard dog looked kind of funny, sort of unusual, was in fact a rare brindled, like a tiger or something, and an excellent, excellent hunting dog. But he never hunted even a mouse, because he was a constant companion through thick and thin. So I know that a lot of people like cats, but for this guy, dogs are it.
Thank you. He took it away from me, didn't he? Choose one of these. You gotta look, see what you want.
Hello, Toastmasters. What do you like to bake? I love to bake cookies. Of course, I love to eat cookies. There's nothing much better than even eating cookie dough. I know you're not supposed to be eating a cookie dough, but there's something appealing about eating cookie dough before it's actually even baked. I mean, you like to make sure it tastes good. You want to make sure it's consistency and right flavor. You don't want to make sure that it's not really too hard, but you can't really tell if it's hard or not when you're sampling it. So you have to always sample on another one after you bake it, of course. And then you have to make sure that the sample that you tried in the bowl, the sample you just ate, was still the same consistency. So then you have another cookie. Well, sorry to say, but at the end of the day, you probably consumed a lot of cookies. But I still love cookies. That's my favorite stuff to bake.
Well, I didn't want to do these last two. But maybe I could have you help me understand it. My daughter is a bus driver. She says that when she stops at some of the schools, like over at Lincoln or Washington, some of the kids that's riding bikes, they'll just run in between the buses or out on the street. You're not to just, even if a vehicle starts to move, they'll run right across the street in front of it. She has seen them do that several times. She says, that's not the bike rules. You're supposed to ride right along the side of the street, not out that far. And you stop at the stop places so that you know for sure whether there's any vehicles coming. I thought that was kind of interesting that she did. But I do want to share with you that it's not taking away from Pete's pet. Pet was when we moved to Colorado, and my girls were both playing down by the river, and Eugene comes up to the apartment where we were staying with my husband's boss that had hired him to come from Michigan to Colorado to live. The dog way down there, and she starts calling it, and she calls it all kinds of names. Sport, come. I can't even think of dogs' names right now. I'm sorry. But she called about 8 names, and the dog never sat there. Finally, she says, Jackie, come. The dog got up and ran right down to her. It was a blue Australian shepherd. I mean, she asked it to come up, and she brought it up to the apartment because the dog followed her. She had to go sit way at the other end of the porch there. And she goes to this end, and she says, Mom, see, I know this. So she calls all these other dog names ahead of time. Finally, she says, Jackie, come. And Jackie came running right down there instantly. But she was queen wherever she was. She was queen of cats. She was queen of dogs. She was, and they just listened to her. She was never rude, but if one was bothering my husband, having pet your dog, if I came to your place, Jackie would let my husband pet your dog 5 minutes, and she'd get between your husband and my husband and your dog. Look up into his face, and God would just go right over there and never come back again. She was boss. She was queen wherever she was. And that's just a tiny bit about what Jackie. So I'll turn it back over.
Since we don't have a general evaluator for these meetings, I missed who was keeping track of Jim's speech. Is there someone could give him feedback on his speech, even if you weren't doing a formal evaluation for him?
Jim, it was a nice PSA, and I like that you practiced it on us. And I like that you gave us kind of a briefing. Before you started it, so that we knew a minute. You did come in at 107, but like you said, you did have a place where you stumbled. So I think just practice it a little more, and you'll be able to come in under the 107. Should be good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I don't know about you, I even did a newspaper editorial on this particular topic last year in, I believe it was May. The questions that are asked in the evaluation form really hooked me because of my age. When you mentioned Emily Post and you mentioned Dear Abby, which I presume to be Abigail Van Buren, that was age related. It won't connect with every audience, but hand out with the copious notes. Very useful takeaway. You ran the risk of handing it out and then being, using that to interrupt your speech. That's just a real, maybe criticize that, but it worked for me, and I will speak from my perspective. What was enough information given on could base a sound decision or draw valid conclusions. The content was excellent. The being late or being on time, the timeliness issues, being respectful and courteous. I was called on this morning to do a counseling session, which I normally do not involve myself in. This is, sir. Were you prepared for the questions that were asked? Obviously, you were, because you caught me red-handed. Simon says you don't respond. You gave me a nod of acknowledgement, and I spoke. That isn't the procedure that was outlined. You got me. You were prepared. Was it effective?
Thank you, Jim. And now I'll sit over here for my next evaluator.
So you can see.
Thank you for multi.
Well, Pete gave a speech called Fun in the Fundamentals. It says, how well did the speaker's topic apply to the audience? Actually, I thought it applied really well. Much into baseball, so I don't know a lot about baseball. All I know is about Jose Canseco, because he always made the cross every time to bat. That's about all I know about baseball. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and I thought it was also very kind of a humorous tone to the day, jolly. People to be a little bit more jolly in this meeting, and I thought, you know, it's kind of enlightens everybody up just a little bit. I thought that you really researched your topic very well. You also kind of brought out some very main points. I thought the person that was very short, that they had to reach up. And sometimes I thought to myself, you know, that kind of applies to maybe about all of us. Sometimes we're kind of short on things, and we have to kind of reach up into ourselves. Made me think about some other things, so I got a little bit off track there. Was the material appropriate for the point made? Because you had your video, you had mentioned a book. I thought that they all went very well together. In fact, I thought to myself, I have to write down that name of that video, because that sounds like it's pretty interesting to me. How clear was the speaker's purpose? I thought it was very clear. I thought you did, like I said, a very excellent job. Your body language was very, very good, and your vocal cords. What could the speaker have done differently? The only thing I could think of was maybe not put your hands in your pockets. I always kind of watch when people get close to the podium, and sometimes they lean over and you're kind of wondering, gosh, is that podium going to fall over? Or what if they pull something out or something differently? How did you like the speech? I thought, like I said, it was very humorous. And it was very informative.
Good too. So now it's time to finalize your ballots and send to Virginia. As I noticed, someone very carefully laid out some ribbons for best evaluator and
Otherwise, you can
speaker
just tell me.
and tabletop. A little business while people write. We've got a couple of things to do.
I got all of them.
Yeah, if Donna will permit me, I know time will permit me. I'll have her invitation, Jim, here's a letter Donna signed for you to take
Thank
to
you.
Bismarck. And is there any other business that we might want to discuss?
I would like to officially induct Suella.
So you want to vote for her, or?
We voted last week.
Okay,
and
good.
She's officially
All right,
in, and I
excellent.
just want to present her with her pin and have her do the Toastmasters
Very
promise.
good. Excellent.
Oh, and I have a question.
Yes.
Explain the beard. We got hooked on the World Series this year, and we watched it every night. And the beards, what was with the beards?
Well, I don't exactly know, other than a couple of them started to wear them. And then it got to be sort of like either on offense or defense. When they come back to the dugout, everyone would tug on their beard. And they decided, hey, this will be part of the fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it was, and then after they won, didn't they put beards on the statues in Boston?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was just that.
Yeah, they had beard night at Fenway Park, and people had real beards and people had fake beards, and they sold a lot of fake beards. It seems like there was, the reason I was late, now I will tell you why I was exactly on time or late according to our new standard. The person who scheduled the room for us left the end of last month, and so my requests for room and such like that now been resolved. So I'm happy to say that I met a new person and she's delightful. And we should probably invite her to be part of Toastmasters. But so we're kind of back on track for rooms. She didn't know anything about sending out the email about, so I'm not sure what that all is, but she did find our paperwork after a while. So she's most efficient. So I couldn't be actually more happy, even though I ended up running down here, but not quite as out of breath as you assumed.
Just to add to that thing, that was a phone call from someone who I did not know, called and asked me about the room scheduling and requested that we move to the bigger room for the 8th of May, and I said, no, that's not a problem. And then I emailed that thing to us, so that is in regard to this, that would be the second Thursday in May.
And the schedule upstairs knows nothing of it. So
you know, maybe it's just part of this information when you get a staff and they need part of that education. I would suggest that probably is what happened there.
was it a gal or a guy?
It was a female voice,
Okay.
but I missed who it was, you know. Some people's voices to me are hard to recognize, you know. It might be some unusual name, and particularly women's voices, I have more trouble with women's voices. And hearing aid or no, I just don't hear a lot of higher pitched voices.
Okay, so so long as we have a room.
And normally we are in the bed, whoever gave you the keys, and we were in this one.
Well, she didn't say, and they were so busy up there. I came down here, and she says, you won't need a key to get in. And it wasn't the regular gate.
Yeah, it wasn't.
And so I talked to the lady who was setting up lunch. We both went out and looked at this sign up here, and it didn't distinguish. It actually, from the picture, showed Toastmasters in the largest room. So I said, well, does that mean that? And I walked in, and there's food being prepared or set up there. And so she said, which room do you want?
All right, so, yeah, one of the things that I noticed is that that's an Outlook program, and so maybe there's some way to add the room numbers or something, so it's not quite so confusing. It's wonderful to have. Remember one time we chose our room based on something that had been posted in October, and it was February, so this thing is certainly more helpful and up to date.
Just to make sure we all understand, that's the boardroom,
right?
This is 1, 2, and that way, if whoever does the scheduling and creates that spreadsheet, puts that on, that would really be helpful. You know, if you're in room 2 or 3 or 1 or in the boardroom.
Yes.
I thought this was a great speech or etiquette one, and could always be done again when we have more members too.
Good. And I thought I'd put the extras in the folder, in the binder. And I can email it to everybody, and Jim can mail one votes for Mark, he said.
Yeah, I just,
Because
you know,
Mark doesn't get email hardly at all.
I can actually copy this at home. If you got an extra one with me and slip it in the book this afternoon.
Okay.
Thank you.
I thought I gave you 3. Any other business before we wrap up?
Nope.
Thank you all.
We better do our votes.
Oh, yes, there is other business. Virginia, the results, please.
Best evaluator are both Jim and Nancy.
Okay, both did a good job, I agree.
For best table topic speaker, Pete got.
Pete got it.
And also as best speaker, Pete.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, it looks like we saved a lot of ribbons here today. Here you go. Thank you. So that does it then?
That'll do it.
We're adjourned.
See you next Thursday.
Who wants to be?
You didn't like my fake little drum roll? I'll have to work on it.
Who is best table topic?
Let me think about that.
Table topic was, we got one.
Okay, so Pete got all three? Best,
So I got, no, you and Nancy shared best evaluator.
oh, okay, okay. Okay, and you got the best speech. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Are you collecting ribbons?
I'm not.
Okay.
I have recycled 99.9% of what I've received. I think that's a good policy, personally.
Well, it is, but in the beginning, it's not.
Thank you so much for that stuff, that handout.
Because now Nancy can go home like Donna did with the first trophy she
Yeah.
ever won. And when someone brings up a point, she can hold up a ribbon and she say, yeah, but do you have a first place ribbon?
Yeah.
And how many do you have?
Were you at the meeting where Donna's?
I can't wait to get that to you.
Ah,
It sounds pretty fun, doesn't it? Interesting.
So this was